It's been some weeks now since Australia's $750 million beef trade with the US was first jeopardised because of high chemical pesticide residues. So a Department of Agriculture revelation that a beef property in the Merriwa district in the Upper Hunter has been quarantined does not augur well for the industry. In this case, beef tested at the Gosford abattoirs revealed that a carcass contained more than 35 times the accepted level of the pesticide dieldrin. This chemical is sometimes used for termite control. The offending property, which is being kept confidential, was identified through the traceback system. According to the Department of Agriculture, the cattle were contaminated in a one-off incident.
It would appear from the information available to us that the cattle had access to some posts that the farmer was treating to stop termites from attacking them. And the cattle, being inquisitive animals, had got into the area that he was working on and had licked the posts. And so it would appear that's what happened. And those posts, we understand, have now been buried, put into this ground as he was going to do it. And the area that was treated is now completely covered by soil.
Nevertheless, thorough testing is being carried out on the entire herd to ensure that no contaminated cattle slip through.
Well, on this particular property that we have, the animals that are remaining on the property will be tested to find out if they contain residues that are unacceptable, and they won't be allowed to be released back onto the market at all until we're satisfied that there's no further contamination of the cattle and that the residues that are in the animals currently affected are below the maximum residue limit.
In the news tonight, we'll bring you all the latest from the World Athletics Championships in Rome. Australia's Kerry Saxby put on a brilliant performance to collect our first medal of the championships.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
On live national television.
Religious television personality Jimmy Baker was a household name in the United States, heading the very popular and profitable Praise the Lord ministry. That is, until it became public that Baker had mismanaged funds worth millions of dollars. His empire and reputation crumbled. Evangelism is at the very core of the Christian gospel, and it's through outreach programs that Texan-born pastor Mark Rutland preaches the word, mostly in third world countries. He says that although the recent publicity has damaged the evangelist image, in the long run it too will serve a purpose.
Where there are scoundrels in the house, you just have to get them out, and you kind of have to go through that every now and then. Politics has to, a political party every now and then that allows scoundrels to take root in the party. You have to go through the scandal every now and then of getting those people out of there, and nobody likes it, nobody enjoys it. But you have to believe that the long run of it will be that you'll be better on the other side of it, that there's a purifying effect on the work of evangelism.
There seems to be different styles of evangelism. How does the more commercial rate with that of the more conservative?
That more commercialized style, as you use the term, I would say is a higher profile, higher cash turnover kind of evangelism, where a more people-oriented evangelism is more concerned with getting where the people are, of doing the work, of really having an impact for Christ on the community and on people's lives, instead of building little private kingdoms.
The Newcastle Hunter Central Coast Awards are restricted to horses trained in the association's area. The Horse of the Year covers 3-year-olds and upwards, and as expected, Rising Fear won the title for his impressive second placing in last year's Melbourne Cup.
And it was at Tallaght going on to win the Cup narrowly from Rising Fear with Sea Legend in third.
For Rising Fear, this year's award follows his top 2-year-old award last year. This year's 2-year-old title went to Snippets, which started its career on the Gold Coast but is now trained under Max Lees at Broadmeadow. Snippets won this year's Brambles Classic at Kembla Grange and the AJC Sires Produce at Randwick.
It's been said that Japan is the hardest and one of the most lucrative markets to crack. A misunderstanding during negotiations can ruin a deal, or if a foreigner offends because of lack of knowledge of local customs, the Japanese buyer may not do business with that company again. Many people have learned these lessons the hard way, but the seminar Newcastle University's Community Programs Department ran today aimed to give the newcomer wishing to trade with Japan a fighting chance.
I think that markets constitute people, and the people are the consumers. So how can you market or deal with the people if you don't know the very basics of their culture, their society, and also the language? How can you be successful in business?
And the final piece of advice?
So spend a bit more time and spend a bit more money and get things done correctly.
Today may well have been an oyster lovers' holiday, for they came in their thousands to the Salamander Bay station. Besides giving the public a look at the fisheries complex, the open day serves as a mini ag-quip of oyster growing technology for those in the industry. Growers can discuss and have demonstrated just about anything to do with their watery breed of livestock, including new inventions. The spat grader has been developed by a local farmer to replace the tedious business of hand culling. Perhaps the most important activity of the day, though, was the Australian Oyster Shelling Championship. The main requirement for entry, it seems, is a very steady hand, as one slip and the razor-sharp knife could do serious damage. Contestants are timed to see how quickly they can open, wash and place on a plate 30 oysters. Unless you can manage that in under 3 minutes, you really aren't in the running. And of course, with so many fans around, not an oyster goes to waste. The Oyster Open Day will be on again at the same time next year.
The new-look young Newcastle side weren't expected to set the State Soccer League competition on fire this year. Most were only teenagers with limited experience. However, Newcastle President Eddie Board says he's happy with the way the season went for the locals.
The purpose of this year was to stay in the State Bank Soccer League. We lost the majority of our players from the NSL side of 1986. In fact, we only had 2 of the regular players left in the side. So the young boys that came forward were 18, 19, 20-year-old boys, and I think this season's made men out of them and they've done a good job for Newcastle.
Will you be able to hang on to the best of these players for next year?
I certainly think we will. They've enjoyed the season and under trying circumstances. We'll need to keep the key players and also probably introduce a few more next season. But yeah, we're going to try our best to keep all the players that we feel will do a job for us.
Despite the dismal season, 3 parties are negotiating with Newcastle United to amalgamate for next year's State League competition. They are reported to be Austral United and Adamstown Rosebud clubs, as well as a private consortium. A decision on a merger is not expected until the end of the month at the earliest.
The new legislation covering workers' compensation, called WorkCover, became law on July the 1st. The government claims WorkCover will significantly reduce the number of phony or unwarranted compensation claims and make it easier for those with real grievances to be dealt with properly. Newcastle Rehabilitation Service has been set up to assist organisations in implementing the new policy through education and development programs. Today, one of Australia's leading rehabilitation management consultants, Ron Coleman, explained the new system to local leaders of industry and the health services. WorkCover revolves around personal contact and rehabilitation programs. Rehabilitation in the WorkCover package means keeping in touch with the injured worker from the day of the accident until he or she returns to the workplace. All employers must have in place before July next year an approved rehabilitation program. According to Dr Chris Howe, one of the Newcastle Rehabilitation Service principals, once they understand the system, it will be well accepted by both management and employees.
I think that basically the employers recognise that the previous system, the old system, was very inadequate, and very expensive, so that they're only just sort of really being told now via seminars what the new system is all about. And the new system has the potential to greatly reduce costs. It has great advantages to the employers, and it has even greater advantages to the employees, in that it'll get them back to work in a much shorter time and without long-term damage.
There's few who could claim that the proposed shopping and cinema complex at Glendale will not affect the nearby shopping centres. Twice the size of Garden City and 81,000 square metres of retail space, it will have a catchment area, according to hookers, of between Morriset and Newcastle. So although it will be built in Lake Macquarie City, the retailers in Newcastle are understandably concerned. Last night, a report to Newcastle City Council reaffirmed these fears. It claims that a report commissioned by hookers underestimates the amount of retail floor space in Newcastle. The council says that as a result, the Minister for Planning and Environment, Bob Carr, who must decide on whether the project should go ahead, may not realise the true repercussions.
Well, I consider the figures represented by hookers are not realistic in relation to setting out the situation as far as Newcastle's concerned. I feel that in relation to the Glendale figures, what they say about Glendale in my mind is going to become a white elephant in the long term, and it's going to create major difficulties, not only for places within the Lake Macquarie area like Cardiff and Glendale minor shopping areas and Argent and Bullaroo, but it's going to have some considerable difficulties in relation to Wallsend and Jesmond and close areas of Newcastle. Now,
Hookers claims its retail figures are correct and that the council should update its data on retail areas instead of relying on its list of properties that are zoned for retail purposes. The developer says the Glendale Centre's effect on the central business district of Newcastle will be minimal because that area is already in decline. He says it's an unattractive and difficult place to shop, but according to Alderman Geddes, that will be changed.
Well, it may be difficult to shop in because of parking, and it may appear to be unattractive because of the length of the street and the association with the railway line, but candidly all these things are being looked at in a way that we intend to make it more attractive for people. We intend to completely revitalise the CBD district, and we've got the assistance of many of the retailers in the area.
The Lake Macquarie City Council is waiting for a traffic report from the DMR before submitting its recommendation on the centre to the Minister. Town Clerk John Rankin says apart from this, the development complies with all council requirements. The Minister was unavailable for comment on when he will make his decision on the centre.
An unusual feature of Alderman.
Kidney transplants have come a long way in the last decade, and according to Dr Tony DePecci, the Assistant Director of the Renal Department at the Royal Melbourne Hospital, approximately 85% of all kidney transplant patients now survive. He says it's a statistic to be proud of, considering only a few years ago the survival rate was about 50%.
There's an enormous quantum leap in the success of transplants. People can look forward to returning to a normal life Whereas with dialysis, while certainly you keep patients alive, the quality of life and the rehabilitation isn't anything like you get with transplantation.
Newcastle Hospital does about 15 kidney transplants per year and has about 120 patients on dialysis. Dr DePecci says teaching visits like his today ensures that there's cross-fertilisation between the major teaching hospitals. It ensures that more isolated centres such as Newcastle stay in touch with the latest developments.
In the Hunter region, one of the psychiatric institutions to wind down its services will be Morriset Hospital. The doors are expected to be closed by 1992, and the Minister says the program won't result in staff retrenchments. The site will be returned along with 8 others across the state to the government, which plans to undertake new projects. Under Health Minister Anderson's announcement of a $20 million major upgrading of the hospital facilities to be retained are 2 other local services. Included in the developmentally disabled area, the Hunter Region Developmental Disability Services, operating from Stockton Hospital, will be improved, as will the Hunter Hospital in Watt Street, Newcastle, under the new mental health program. At a cost of $325 million, the 8-year plan for the development of a specialised hospital and the upgrading of community-based services will be supervised by a ministerial task force.
The $5,000 scholarship is the first time the Newcastle Germania Club and the Goethe Institute have combined forces to enable a student to study in West Germany. The club is paying for the airfare and the institute for the tuition and accommodation. The Goethe Institute is world-renowned for its language schools and its efforts to bridge the cultural gap that exists between the German and other cultures. The Germania Club has made a 5-year commitment to this scholarship, and the first student to benefit is 3rd-year German language student at Newcastle University, Granville Pillar. Mr Pillar will leave in January for the 8-week course with the Institute. President of the Germania Club, Gunther Langebeck, says this scholarship is part of the club's ongoing work to increase knowledge of the German culture and language.
We believe that we are doing what we're here for, namely, promoting the German language. We think it's very important for industry, for commerce, in science. German is one of the predominating languages. And as far as we're concerned, we will do everything to promote the further existence and continuing of the language.
The week-long singles tournament was the first of its type in Australia when it started 26 years ago. This year, 8 of the top players in Australia came by invitation to bowl their way towards the $1,500 first prize. Last year's winner, Ken Williams, succumbed to Waratah bowler Barry Salter 31-30 in the early rounds. Salter went on to join Ken Woods from Queanbeyan in the final, played on a fast green today. Both Salter and Woods have won the tournament before, and both have played for Australia. Despite going into the final with equal wins in the preliminary rounds, Woods proved too good for Salter to win 31-19. Meanwhile, the ladies' teams were battling for honours in the finals of the Northern District Grand Carnival, played today at Charlestown. Almost 2,000 players in teams of 4 came from as far away as Queensland and the Victorian border to compete. The competition was split into 4 sections, and preliminary rounds were played throughout the week at 31 clubs in the area. Today, the top 2 teams in each section met for the finals. Section 1 was won by NJC, captained by Faye Craig. Section 2 went to Tuncurry, captained by R. Christie. Section 3 was won by East Maitland with captain Pat Nerrett, while Section 4 went to Western, captained by Elsie Myers.
Yes.
Last night's win was the best possible way to end the season, which will go down as the most dismal ever for Newcastle. The Falcons hit the front midway through the first quarter and never lost it as they powered to only their 6th win of the season. The undisputed king of the stadium last night was Gerry Everett. He scored a massive 53 points, including a spectacular slam dunk in the second quarter.
Gerry Everett said, "Thank you very much, oh, like a thief in the night. Oh, yeah."
Everett's 53 points is the first time a Newcastle player has topped 50 in an NBL game. At one stage, he scored an astonishing 12 points in 2 minutes. Next best was Wayne McDaniel with 41. For West Side Melbourne, Paul Kuiper top scored with 45. The big young Australian rep is tipped to join the Falcons next year. While the season has come to a close for the players, the administrators now have a tough job ahead to rebuild the Falcons. The first step will be made on October 1st, when the coach for next season will be announced. Owen Wells is not expected to retain the position, with current Sydney Supersonics coach Ken Cole expected to get the job. Today's grand final attracted a crowd of about 3,000 to Macquarie Field at Spears Point. It was warm, almost too warm to have to play a grand final, but it wasn't long before Adamstown drew first blood. In the 7th minute, Sean Ingham crossed to Glenn Chapman, who made no mistake to give Rosebuds the upper hand. Just after the first goal, the predicted southerly cool change arrived, much to the relief of the 22 players. However, along with the change came smoke from a nearby scrub fire. For the boys on the hill, it was too much, and they decided to settle a few arguments with their fists until police were called in to get the spectators' interest back to the game. With only 5 minutes to go in the first half, Gavin McDonald took advantage of some poor Australs play. Rosebuds went to the break with a healthy 2-0 lead. Whatever Australs coach Neville Power told his players at half-time worked. They kicked in 3 goals through Robert Virgili, Wayne Bailey and Robert Holden to win the First Division Grand Final 3-2. Cessnock took the Second Division trophy with a 1-0 win over Stockton.
In Newcastle, members of the 500-strong Federated Storemen and Packers Union met at the Workers' Club to decide their next step in the 6-day-long dispute. In a closed meeting, the members voted overwhelmingly to support their colleagues in the statewide strike, following their decision in Sydney earlier today. The workers say strike action is the only way to secure more talks with employers for the wage increase. Already, major supermarket chains in the area, like Shoey's, are running low of popular brand items in the paper goods and cereal products. This week, casual staff employed to pack the shelves after hours have not been called in. If the strike continues, Managing Director of Shoey's Richard Owen says the situation will worsen, but assures customers at this stage there's no need for panic buying.
It does not affect things such as milk and bread and eggs and cheese and yogurts and some of the drinks. All these items are not affected by this strike. So even though we talk that there is a strike on with the Storemen and Packers, it is really only the hard grocery items that are affected. It is not that fresh, those fresh products that...
Do you expect a rush of panic buys?
Not necessarily, no. No, I think the consumer is becoming used to this type of thing and they are able to pace themselves fairly well.